Iokwe, or hello. My name is Alisha Dacus, and this is my language presentation for ELL 432. Today we will be talking about the language of Marshallese, or as they say, Ri Majel. I don't know if I quite pronounced this right. I'm still learning the language myself, so yeah. Quick little overview of what we're going to be talking about. First, going over the culture. Who speaks Marshallese? What's their culture like? And where they are. Because when I first started researching for this project, I didn't know what Marshallese was or where they were. So I'll be giving a little overview on that. So if you don't quite know yet, you will learn. And we're going to be talking about the orthography and also the pronunciation of the language. Because as you can see or hear, when I first started this presentation, I had a little bit of trouble with the pronunciation if I pronounced it right. So we're going to be going over how some of the letters are pronounced, because it's pretty different from English. Going over the syntax and sentence structures, then the morphology, then Marshallese, the Marshallese people and their immigration to the United States and their process in learning English. And I'll be giving a few helpful resources and activities in case you ever have or come in contact with a Marshallese English language learner. Okay, so these are the Marshallese people. They're an oceanic language. As you can see from the map down here, they are almost smack dab in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. So they have a lot of influence from their neighboring islands. Like here's Papua New Guinea, Indonesia, a lot of influence from Malaysia. And so yeah, there's about 44 to 55,000 estimated native speakers of Marshallese in the Marshall Islands. And in the United States, there's an estimated 22,434 people. But that's probably gone up because this data was, I believe, from 2010. So it's gone up because immigration from the Marshall Islands to the United States has been increasing over the years since about 1986. In the United States, the most populated, the highest populations of Marshallese people are in Arkansas, California, and Hawaii. So you can see kind of going like right over to California, right over to Hawaii, but kind of a farther jump to Arkansas. Kind of interesting, huh? Their culture, they have very large, close-knit families, and as I said, they're heavily influenced by their neighboring islands. But then, of course, they have their own customs, as you can see from their cultural festival up here. There's also a lot of influence from the West, from Spanish, and heavy influence from Spanish on their language as well, and a lot of influence from English. They also have a very high Christian influence from the missionaries that come. The missionaries actually had a really high influence on the Marshall Islands and their culture, especially on their language. That's what we're going to be talking about right now. So going on to the orthography and the pronunciation, because of the involvement of the missionaries and as more recently the American involvement, there's been a lot of influence by the English language. You see, before the missionaries came, Marshallese was a very oral language. They didn't have as much in the way of a written language, but they had a very rich oral language. So then when the missionaries came, they created an alphabet for Marshallese that was more based on the Latin alphabet that we know, with A, B, C, D. And this one didn't have as much emphasis on the sounds, but they revamped and recreated the alphabet for Marshallese. And now the one that is currently used has a lot more emphasis on sound and how the characters are more sound based, like how like having a letter to represent the sound. The way I kind of thought about it, something I related, was I'm currently studying some Japanese, so I thought about how Japanese characters represent a sound in I believe it's katakana. If I'm wrong, please forgive me. But yes, it's like a lot of the sound pronunciation, the sound characters. There are 24 letters in the current Marshallese alphabet, and in a lot of cases there are one letter with different symbols around it can represent different sounds. I'm going to give a little demonstration of that, a little field trip out into my computer. Ooh. So, I'm going to take the letter O. There's no. Oh, pretty good circle. And so, this in Marshallese would be the O sound, as in the word show. But then, we go and put a little line underneath it. That makes it the ah sound, such as in dog. But then, if we go and we put little dots right above it, that makes it into, this one was actually really interesting. It's between an eh and an eh and an eh sound. Think of the words kin and ken, those middle sounds, the eh and the eh sound. That's what this symbol represents in Marshallese. That was pretty interesting. Very different from English. Alright, so, there we go. Back we go. Ooh. Okay, so we're back. So as you can see, the underscore, or the underscore makes the letter kind of have a heavier sound, and there's multiple characters representing different sounds. And when there's a double vowel, that reinforces that single letter sound, like a double L would be like an ul sound. Interesting little tidbit as well was for the R sound. When there's a double R, it has the same kind of tongue roll as in Spanish. Sadly, I cannot roll my R, so I'm not even going to try. You don't want to hear that. Alright, moving on to syntax. Like I said, it's very similar to other Micronesian and Oceanic languages. And let's see, there's two different types of dialects depending on where you are on the islands. In the west, there's the Ralik, and in the east, there's a Ratak. There's different types of sentence structures too. It's kind of divided into two different types of sentences. There's predicational. That's kind of more subject focused, where the subject is commonly more at the end of the sentence in Marshallese. One example that I have is please forgive me on my pronunciation here, is Quenya Monya. That translates to what will you be eating? But it literally translates to you will eat what? It's kind of the what at the end of the sentence. Kind of interesting. And then the equational is where the sentence can be reversed. An example in English would be Mary is the boss, because then that can be flipped to the boss is Mary. And something I noticed also in this language was that they tend to combine a lot of kind of longer phrases into just 1 to 2 word phrases in the exact English translation. For example, the what's translated for how are you is iman mor, which translates literally to good life. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And then there's a really heavy influence of English on the daily language. For example, their way of saying good morning is just morning, kind of like how we say, hey, morning. But then if it's a really good morning, they will be like, oh, morning, morning. So I thought that was really interesting. There's a lot of words like that where they have similar, or they use English words. Oh, here's a fun little fact. Remember that the word I said in the beginning for hello, iokwe? This actually literally translates into the word, or into love. So, and this is used a lot in their greetings and their farewells. So I thought that was really interesting and kind of cute, you know? They have love in their greetings and goodbyes. Lots of love like that. Alright, moving on to morphology. So a note on their nouns. Their nouns are not marked, and they don't inflect amount or gender or case, kind of like ours do. And they're also verbalized. while the verbs are nominalized. Then they have two sets of first and second person pronouns, the absolutive, emphatic, and the objective. Third person pronouns are only for people. They use, for non-humans, they use null pronouns. And let's see. They're the demonstratives. They demonstratives are used as kind of like for indicating who the speaker is and who the subject or the listener is. So there's 5 here. You can read over these, like near the speaker, and the listener, away from both, distant but visible. So it's kind of interesting they have these little 5 categories for the demonstratives. Okay, so going on to some of the challenges that ELLs from the Marshall Islands can have. Interesting thing that I found out was that in the Marshall Islands, they actually, as of recently, do a lot of bilingual education. So, as I said, English is one of the official languages. So a lot of Marshallese people are now bilingual. However, they're still learning English even when they come over, especially when they're younger. So, still gotta be helping them with that and being aware. As I said, there's a little bit of history. There's been a lot of recent immigration since 1986. This was under the Compact of Free Association. This basically was when America kind of began having a very high influence in the Marshall Islands, and they became able to come to America and have citizenship more. So there's a big influx of immigration. And then back to the challenges. While the language is very rich in oral tradition, the written language is more recent. So they may be still learning some of the written aspects and need some more assistance on that. And also, as I've just been showing, there's a big difference in their written language and ours. They may look similar in some aspects, but there's still some differences. So writing is a big area of focus. And a lot of different phonemes, such as they don't have the but they have a lot of combinations. Like for example, the T sound, the T letter, has a T, somewhere in between T and D. So it's like T. Kind of interesting. So these are some of the challenges. They have just very different in their alphabet. So here's a couple of sites. If you want, you can go and click on these. I can kind of give a quick little showing of some of the websites that I found here, going back out on my computer. Oh, hey, look, I use Screencast-O-Matic. Okay, so this is just one that I found that was really helpful. This is some of the common phrases, and this was actually kind of interesting. This one was from some people going over to teach in the Marshall Islands, teach English. So kind of an overview of the language. This was very helpful. This one was really interesting too. This is from the Peace Corps, but this gave a lot of information on like pronunciation and the whole alphabet and a lot of the language itself. And then this was a good site that I found that was having to do a lot with English language learners. So you can just take a look at these. A lot of good like sample lessons and everything, and a lot on the on English language learners, especially with writing. So it's really important. Okay, we'll go on back and we'll be wrapping things up here. So yeah, these two sites were about a lot about the Marshallese culture. This one was more about lessons and explanations of the Marshallese language. And then these ones were for writing and reading, and this one was really good for bilingual students and working with them in your classrooms because they have different needs and they have a different focus. So, como, or thank you so much for listening. I hope that you learned a lot. It's a fascinating language, and I hope that you get to study some more of it. Thank you so much, and have a great day.